Hey guys, I'm E-House.
I'm Andre.
And today we're going to talk to you about working cover and using cover on the airsoft field, because this is a subject and an action that we see people struggle with sometimes, and it's something that every now and then even we need a reminder about.
Yep.
So we're going to do some demos for you and hopefully give you some things to consider that you've never really thought about.
Absolutely.
All right, now to start off with, we're going to talk about what you're going to do when you're on a corner and you have your rifle out. Now, when you're using your rifle, one of the biggest mistakes that we see on the field is people get right up on their piece of cover like this and they start putting their head around to try to see what's out there. What you're doing there is you're basically rendering yourself totally defenseless, because if you need to bring your gun out, you got this in your way. You are glued to the wall. You need to bring the rifle up and around and then step out to be able to use your cover properly. And what that's doing is just kneecapping your ability to fight back. Same with when we see people with their back to the wall. Now, when you have your back to the wall, it's the same thing. You're not facing downrange. You're not seeing where your targets are coming from. And you're, again, going to have to adjust or have a delayed reaction if someone decides to run up on you. You know, you got Andre coming around the corner. He's got his raced out high kappa, and he decides to sprint up on me and put 3 rounds into my chest. Well, I can't see him coming until he's past this focal point, because that's where my vision ends, because, again, I've got my back to the wall. Whereas if I'm on my piece of cover the right way, that is, having enough dead space between yourself and the cover to at least have a low ready position, if not just have your gun totally up, and you have your eyes downrange just inside enough so that you're covered from oncoming rounds, but you're outside enough that you have a good field of view, then what you're doing there is you're giving yourself the maximum ability to react to contact and fight back and still be able to pop out and get good shots on target very easily. So now the other thing that we see a lot of people struggle with is what they do when the cover is on their weak side. So obviously I'm right-handed, and in order to expose myself enough to be able to get my rifle up, I kind of have to step out an inordinate amount to be able to do so and return rounds. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to switch shoulders. And then I can just use the cover like normal, like nothing is different. Same concept, everything's the same, I'm just shooting ambidextrous. Another way we see some people do this, and I personally don't recommend it because I don't find it comfortable or stable, and I don't think it works all that well with a 2-point sling, is it's a little faster arguably, but it's called the shoulder bump. And for me, I'm going to let my sling out, just bump my stock to my other shoulder, acquire my optic, and step out like that. It can work, and some people have success with it. For me, I don't like it at all. I find it uncomfortable. I find it unstable. And when I've tried it with my real firearms, because again, it is a technique from real firearms, I don't enjoy it at all. I think it sucks. So I don't recommend it, but something to consider.
All right, so another thing that you want to consider, especially if you use a lot of pistols, indoor or outdoor, works all the same, is working your cover and knowing your cover. Like Eric talked about, it's making sure that you're on the high ready position and you're pointing out with your pistol. So what I mean by working your cover is if you're engaging somebody who's right in front of you at your 12 o'clock, they obviously are going to come in and out every once in a while. So make sure that, or not make sure, but what's a good thing to know about your cover is drop down, so they don't know how to expect you in the next section they come popping out. Another thing to note is when you're using pistols, always have your pistol. It's such a short gun. It's so compact. You can get right up against this wall and you can pop out, make yourself less exposed as possible. Unlike with your rifles, you have a very long equipment, so you have to be out further, so it's going to make you a little bit more exposed. With the pistol, you can get up as far as as close as you want to the cover, and you can just pop out and make yourself less visible. Again, you can do the same thing, drop down, so the enemy that's engaging you has less of a chance of hitting you because they don't know how you're going to be standing, straight up or kneeling down.
Another thing a lot of people forget about, especially when you're at fields that have vehicles or whatnot on them, is gaps in the bottom of cover. And you need to worry about those because people can shoot your shins and your feet, and just because it's airsoft, if you get hit anywhere, that counts equally as much as getting hit right in the chest. So you need to be mindful of this when you're doing any kind of cover behind a vehicle, or in this case, this raised structure. but you can also use this to your advantage and use this for some creative hiding spots. Now, if you're familiar with Magpul Dynamics, you know, that classic gem, there's obviously the stuff like the Urban Prone that you can use, and you can get down here and clear that cover, or there's some of the other modified prone positions. You know, you've got the Viking Tactics style, where you come down like this. But one thing to keep in mind is if you're trying to clear a piece of cover that's significantly low enough that you need to cant your rifle to do so, then you're gonna also need to bear in mind that your BB is going to curve in whatever direction the top of your rifle is facing, and that's because of hop up. So if you have a red dot on your rifle, you're gonna need to practice a little bit and adjust your holdovers and probably put a few rounds downrange to kind of walk your rounds to your targets to make sure that you're gonna get those hits that you're looking for.
All right. Now for us pistol users or speed officers who use pistols as your primary, regardless, this is another great tool that you can use. Is people tend to forget, they play this Call of Duty mindset where everything above the equator is your target, but they tend to forget what's underneath. Like Eric said, you're getting shot in your shins or even in your boot, that's an automatic out, and you know, the part of your body when you're playing airsoft. Just because it's airsoft doesn't change a thing. So we have a cover right here. The great thing is you can cut down like this, you can just shoot underneath your cover. Now the great thing about being this down low is you have a pistol, you can get really nice and tight and find where exactly you want to put those rounds. Again, watch for hop up and adjust for that. But one thing to consider is when you're that low, or if you're in a tight situation where you can do this, make sure that you don't get too close to your pistol, because it's happened to me and I've seen it happen on the field. If you get too close to your pistol, that slide is going to hit you right in your goggles. And it's happened to me and it's happened to a lot of other people. So make sure you have just enough room where you get nice and tight and shoot underneath this cover. And same thing goes for the opposite hand. You can do the same thing. You come around, transition, and come down like this, and you've got perfect sighting down range. So again, you can use these covers to your advantage. A lot of people don't check underneath the equators, what I like to call it. All right, again, above, people tend to look, but they don't look underneath. So use cover that's low to the ground to your advantage, because most people won't check there.
One last point that I want to mention really quick is sometimes you're going to be stuck on a piece of cover, not because, you know, you're pinned down or anything, but because you're covering a lane or you're covering an area. This is especially true at some milsim ops where you're going to be attacking or defending possibly for hours on end. You might get tasked with pulling security somewhere. So what I like to do there is I like to get down on a knee, and I'll actually sometimes brace my gun up against my cover, because look at this, it's just all bone support, it's all natural support, and I've got a very stable shooting position while I'm still behind some concealment. So this allows you to very easily react and have your gun up and ready and comfortably. So I can hold this position for minutes at a time, if, you know, in some cases, maybe more than minutes, dozens of minutes. So you can hold that position very easily. If you need to cover a lane for some reason, that may or may not apply depending on where you're playing. I mean, somewhere like River City Airsoft out here, games tend to move much more quickly. You're not going to be doing that, but another thing to consider. Still cleaner than some reloads I've seen. Hold on, just to prove that I'm not actually that stupid.
Oh, funny thing is, I've seen that too.
We've all fucking seen it.
And one last thing, guys. Know your damn equipment. If it's taking too long to reload, just ditch it and switch over to your secondary, or just run away.
Yeah, at a certain point, we see a lot of people using cover to kind of lounge out and not really do anything, or they're fidgeting with their stuff. If possible, you really should have everything squared away well enough that you're not hogging up this corner, that someone else whose stuff is squared away, who could actually be covering this area, they might need this corner more than you do.
So at home, just practice, set your stuff up, or your vest, your belt, or whatever. Set it up at home, practice, do a couple practice run reloads, every once in a while, just sit by your bed and just put in your mags. Know exactly where the positioning of every pouch is, where your holster or even your sling is. Make sure you stay at home, practice that before you hit the field so you know your equipment and you're on the ready. I know this is airsoft, but it still applies.
Yep. If you want to be good, you got to get good, son. Get some practice in. Try hard for life.
Okay.
One of the other biggest sins that we see a lot on the field is crowding cover. Now, we've only got 2 of us here, so it's not that bad, but I kid you not, we'll see on the field all the time 5, 6, 7 guys will all be behind a piece of cover this size, all trying to work the same corner. Don't do that. At that point, all you're doing is you're crowding that piece of cover. If 1, maybe 2 guys can work this corner, then all you've got is those other 5 guys. They're all muzzle sweeping each other, they're crowding everything, and no one is really holding security because odds are there's other places in this area that those guys could be needed. So you're gonna have it where 7 guys are all on one piece of cover, all facing the same way, and someone's gonna come from a direction that none of them are looking because they're all focused on this one corner. Yeah, someone could pop out over this fence. No one's looking this way. I mean, we could have a guy on this hole right here. So we could easily spread even just the 2 of us around to hold much better security than if we're just crowding the same piece of cover. So bear that in mind as you're working with your team on the field.
And if you're not working with people that you know and there's just random people on the field, just let them know, like, hey guys, push up to a building, cover them, and let them move on. It's much easier just to communicate rather than just waiting for them to move.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to communicate. Airsoft is a social game. Talk to each other.
Yep.
All right, so that'll do it for this video. Hopefully you found it entertaining and maybe helpful. Maybe we gave you some things to think about.
Absolutely. So once again, guys, practice at home so you can become a better airsofter.
The ultimate operator. Anyways, I'm E House.
I'm Andre.
Peace.
Thanks for watching.